Good morning. Welcome to Fasting Space. So nice to have you here this morning. Grab a coffee, tea, a water, dive in with me on a little space. We'll have some reflection, some space to center ourselves for the week so we can take a powerful step forward in health. You are familiar, I imagine, with the phrase, time is on your side. And of course, the inverse. Time is against us. Time is not on our side. When we think about this state of mind, we think about time. Time is really pretty uniform, right? But how do we relate to it? And do we feel like we're behind the ball? Are we struggling? Do we feel like we're running out? Or do we feel like openness? Time is on our side. No matter where you're at on that spectrum, but especially if you feel like, pressure. Fasting, to me, in the big picture, think about it. It's just a space of openness. We're creating some space in the body. That should be a calm, centered, relaxed space. And so when we're thinking about that space, we're taking that space, we're extending it through time. I use a lot of metaphors like floating through space, floating in a sailboat, saying we're trying to move through time in the most gracious and thoughtful way. And so we say we want to make time our ally. That's the title of this today. Make time your ally. How are you feeling with it right now? Do you feel like time is your ally? Or do you feel like time is kind of an enemy right now? You can think about that in multiple ways if we want to drill down right into our weight loss process. We're saying, how am I going to be flowing through 2026? Are we flowing through time in a graceful and thoughtful way? Are we struggling with it all the way into a fasting space? Is this something that you have been diving in on? Is it something that you're practicing? This is what I want this space to be about. Fasting Space, the program, an opportunity to do what we're talking about. I'm fasting in the morning is generally like the easiest way to flow through a space. To me, a calm, centered, thoughtful way to start a day, a great way to start a week. Finding the corollary from the body, opening up fasting space in the body. It's like, let the body clear out the excess, kind of get down to that root level, giving an opportunity too. That's what we're doing in the program. Fasting space in the mind, a little bit of kind of a meditation, contemplation space. We are surrounded, inundated, even these days, with so much coming at us. Can we bring some fasting space into the mind? Are there things in your life that in the morning are taking up mental space, just saying this isn't really starting my day, especially on Monday, right? Starting our week off on the most positive foot. Maybe something like that is the phone, like right away it's a big habit, something I've worked to do, try to make the first things I'm doing in the morning not a phone. Now, when the first thing, if you're just getting up and you're heading right to Dr. Z on Fasting Space, we say we make an exception. Okay, but like before this show, I make it very intentional. I'm not going to check the news, okay? I don't want any negative vibe coming in. I'm trying to bring the most positive energy to you so we move forward. So I'm very intentional. I'm not going to bring any negative thing in. This time that we have, we're saying we're trying to make time our ally. We're trying to line everything up in our life so that we're flowing forward in the most positive way. If you think about some of the discussions we had in the fall, that we have limited bandwidth and they can get filled up with these slots and advertisers trying to get in there, trying to sell us various things, food products, maybe things that aren't in line with really our core path that we're trying to do. Maybe it's something that can bring worry into the day. Some person is dialed in on, financial markets and all these sorts of things. They're saying, okay, what is going to be happening in the world? Say, hey, here's a space where we can just say no to all that for a little bit. Make the first step in our day just very positive, thoughtful, centered. Say the things that are important to me in my day is that I move through this day with my health as a priority, that I'm going to be practicing making the decisions that are actually going to take me down the path, accomplishing my goal. We're reading the book about overcoming the obstacle, the mountain. And I'm going to keep going on that, but today we're going to dive in on this, Atomic Habits. Have you read it? Let me know in the comments if you have read it or not, or have you heard of it or not. I have heard of it for quite a while, and I've had conversations with people about some concepts in it. And I said, that sounds pretty good. I am going to read it, and let's bring some of these thoughts into our whole discussion. One of the big things I've been trying to do on the channel, of course, take the best books that I can find that people have suggested, that I've come across, that I haven't yet read, to try to bring the best thinking, enrich our discussions. Try to take powerful concepts and understanding, distill them down into the best way that can help us all walk forward in health. We're on a journey together. We're trying to improve our mental health, our physical health. Another book that I have used a lot on the channel, that beautiful book, The Creative Act, A Way of Being. In so far, I read the introduction to this book, and I'm like halfway through chapter 1, and already we're in that space, creating a way of being. We get another perspective on it. One of the things that I was seeing already, he's talking about less about goals. He's saying in this book, which is something to think about. I'm in favor of having goals. Less about goals, though, and more about finding a way of being. It's about the type of person who is walking down a path towards something, and that's the primary thing. This is what we've been talking about already. So we get some really good thinking. A nice picture I took of the book, an image to show you that I think you will like. But for just a few moments before I dive in here, I just want to give some space to you here. This program, the thing I love about it the most, it's interactive. I want it to be your space, your show, your program, and we can make it dynamic. What is on your mind? We have multiple levels where things are going here. If you have a struggle or a thought that you want to put into the space, we weave it together in that way, and that's always an open thing when we're doing this live. I don't want to be like the train is heading down the tracks so fast. It's like, Dr. Z, come back. We can always slow it down. Happy to have a chat about anything that is helpful. I'll just tell you a quick story before we dive in on the book. I was chatting with a friend this weekend, and they're saying, "Oh, what are you up to?" And I'm, just saying I'm, trying to do this live program. Give that a whirl. Try to create a space of health, hopefully that is like an experience. This would be my goal. Let me know how we are doing. A place where you can come. It's like a digital space. Or say, hey, this is a grounding space where we are stepping toward health, kind of centering the thinking. And they're like, oh, that sounds cool. Like, how's it going? I'm like, well, it's like, okay, I'm enjoying it. I'm like, it's helping me read and dive in. And this person was telling me, they were like, reading is overrated. That's what they were telling me. I was like, they're like, you can just, you can just get an AI summary now. That's what they were saying. Like, have you ever done it? Like, put your atomic habits into the thing and it'll just give you a thing. I have not really resonated with that. It's not really my vibe. But this person was so excited about it. They were like, oh, like I've learned so much. Just, I haven't had to read all the books. I get the info. I'm like, we've had Cliff Notes for a long time. I had Cliff Notes in college, To me, this is so symptomatic of, symptomatic, emblematic of like the whole ethos of culture these days. Like, everything instant gratification, everything like, how do I get all the benefits without doing the work? These are the sorts of things I was reflecting on. I was thinking, how do I get all the information of a book without actually reading it? And I was thinking, I was like, because the things that I want to help communicate on this channel that I find really valuable in moving forward in health is like actually slowing things down, not trying to do too much, too fast, building a strong, solid, stable foundation so that this process, simple fasting, that process that is incorporating every other good part of health, I want it to be the last health program you ever have to encounter. That would be my aspirational goal. Someone is coming trying to lose weight. They say they find success sustainably, don't need another thing. We have like not just a weight loss treadmill that people can be stuck on going through cycles, and we've talked about that in the session last week, going around a circle. How do we break out of a cycle and move in a different direction? But then just the whole weight loss industry, like more broadly, to say people usually, it's like we go from one thing to the next. It's hard to sink in to a space and stick with something. And so just the idea of this whole thing that AI is gonna like give us all the answers so quickly without having to work for it in some fashion. Not a vibe that I was like, I don't know if it's gonna work. But I have an open mind. Like, if an AI could help us do it, I say I should do it. So I did. I took my friend's advice. I went to AI bot thing and I typed in, like, tell me everything I need to know about atomic habits so that I could lose weight. Okay, and have you interacted with one of these LLMs? And in just like a few seconds, it spits out, a page of like all these key concepts. And I'm reading through it and I'm like, well, it is great. I was like, but it also is like reading a table of contents, basically. I was like, well, we aren't driving deep. Like, it can tell you, like, here's what we're going to walk through, but does it help you do it? And so then I was thinking, how do I bring like the most value to people, using a book and using thoughts? Like, I can put together a slide that says, here is what the book is about. But I like the process we've been doing in these sessions so far where, like, I haven't read the whole book. I've read a little bit. It's like we're stepping through it. And so as I was thinking, like, well, like, you could just go get the book and read it, which of course you're welcome to do. But like the real value, I think, is like we're taking the concepts and ideas that are powerful, right? I mean, millions of copies sold. People found a lot of value from it, We're going to take these thoughts together, just like we're doing with the other books. I'll probably get a couple of them going, I think, at the same time, so we can kind of juggle these ideas, weave them together, all into a powerful process. It's helping us build the type of powerful mindset that helps us find and discover our path, our way of being, the way that we can find what works with our life and our circumstances so that we can take steps every day walking down that path, overcoming the obstacle that we are trying to do, whether that's a weight loss goal, some other health goal, a mental health goal. We want to move toward all those. Just finding a space of peace and contentment. To me, I say that's enough. And so that feels good. If you have ideas and ways you think would be better to do it, though, I am all open to it. But so my experience, I dove in just on Saturday, start reading Atomic Habits from the perspective, okay, the things that I was familiar about, this idea, get 1% better every day, that comes from this book. And I've talked about that for a long time. I was like, okay, I would like to do that. And so much you glean, just, I read my AI summary and I was like, to actually dive into it, that was just such a different experience. Nobody's going to be replacing reading books with any AI. That's what I don't tell my friend. They'll figure it out though, I hope. Guy starts this book just by telling a story about their experience. They had always wanted to be a very successful baseball player, and then they were in a traumatic injury where they got basically smashed in the face. Ended up really hurting them, trouble breathing. They ended up in a coma, skull fractures, all this sort of stuff. And they had a really horrible time rehabbing from it. And it actually took like a couple years, I think, before they were playing baseball again. And that was like through the end of college. And so he had wanted to get a college scholarship and ended up getting like one of the last spots on a baseball team, like just kind of limping into it. And then he tells a story about how he just started developing habits that were helping him take a step towards his goal. And I took a few quotes just out of this, like he defines, okay, a habit, a routine, or a behavior that is performed regularly and in many cases automatically is what we're going to try to build, what we've been building through our discussions. Remember the book in the fall, Thinking Fast and Slow, about automatic decision making, how everything can get primed in a space and the habits that we have are loaded in as kind of our default way of being. And so many times, we did the example just last week about have you found yourself, you're standing in front of the cupboard, you've already eaten something before, it's like, and you didn't want to do it. And it's like these things you can just flow into a space. And so we have habits that are happening automatically. A big part of our process of health is bringing in enough awareness and building in an environment, the pauses. We did the practice pause and pivot at the end of the session on Friday. It's like, how do we bring in enough awareness and enough patience that we can actually reprogram these things so that the flow state that we get into, I like to say fasting flow state, that we can flow through a space without struggle. See, that's an incredible habit that I would like to help people build. What he says here, in his experience, like rehabbing from a traumatic injury, 6 years after he was smashed in the face, almost died, ended up being selected as a top male athlete named to ESPN's Academic All-America in college. And he never went on to play professional baseball, but like to him, that was like the accomplishment of kind of like a life vision. And he said it was like the small steps every day that helped him improve 1% every day. Doing the work, the practice that compounds over time. There's another thing that I picked up just in this first chapter that we've already been on, like comparing our physical health with like financial health. And there's all this wisdom in markets about compounding, that power of compounding, and that we want to compound our health. That health, so much more than a financial success, is what can bring like true vitality to life. And so this is what I was saying, like in the morning, like if you're somebody like, let's dial less stock market, more physical health market, the actual market of the body, the exchange that is happening in the body of nutrients and energy. This is what we should really be dialed in on, I say. He says, a critical lesson I learned, changes that seem small and unimportant at first will compound into remarkable results if you are willing to stick with them for years. So that's what he says. We all deal with setbacks, but in the long run, the quality of our lives often depends on the quality of our habits. With the same habits, you end up with the same results, but with better habits, anything is possible. I pretty much agree with that. Possible doesn't mean guaranteed, right? There's no guarantees in life. So many random things happen. Look at this guy. Everything was going great and he got smashed in the face. But this is the type of process, like I was saying in the beginning. We want to get on a path that is helping us move forward, that we can stick with for years. You know, like a lot of self-help sort of stuff is like lose weight now. And that's, you know, there's a place for stuff like that. It's like people say, like, lose weight so that you are at an ideal weight by 3 years from now. You say, well, does that not sell as well? I don't know. But like people say, I want the thing that is going to fix this right now. But look at it this way. Let's say that the flashy thing worked. Like you took the pill, you took the thing, you took the supplement, whatever it was, and you say, okay, it really did help you lose weight now. It's like, you still have to have the process. It's going to be 3 years from now at some point, right? So when we're trying to make time our ally, this is where we're going with it. I was like, okay, everything doesn't have to happen right now. And even if it did, we're still going to be living our life. And we want to be enjoying that and sustainable in the long term. So I hope that the community that we can build, these sort of thinking is like, yes, that is what I want. Long-term, sustainable, pressure down. So I feel like, to me, that's very interesting because like this book is so popular. And to me, I was just very encouraged reading that. Like, oh, like there's a lot of people finding value from these ideas that are like long-term focused. But already, I think, you know, he does it in a very thoughtful way. So that's kind of the introduction. Things that I am gleaning from the introduction. And then so much of this was, I really enjoy reading these books, this type of book especially, I do really like. See, here's something you won't get in an AI overview, okay? The book starts out with this story. He's talking about the British cycling team and how for years upon years, it was like the worst. And he has these silly things like bike companies wouldn't even sell bikes to them. They're like, we don't want our professional bikes. We don't want these people riding them. We want, you know, people in France riding them or something, they're saying. And so he tells a story of this doc who's like takes over like the training and the health and all these things of the athletes, and they go through this process to transform British cycling. Have you heard the story about this ever? I had never heard it. And so he goes through about every detail and how they went so detailed, designing special fabrics in a wind tunnel so that their racing suits were better, and special things so that their bikes didn't get dusty. And they went through just all these details and built this process, which kind of he's using as an analogy about, okay, atomic habits, that all the little things matter, that this team went all in on every little thing and built this process. This is kind of the idea. And so he goes through how like it was like 6 or 7 years they were going through this basically process of trying to make little improvements all the time. And then by the Olympic Games, they won like 60% of all the medals in the 2008 Olympic Games. And they just transformed British cycling. And so I was reading this and I was thinking, okay, this is nice. Like I can see this. Everything matters. Like I did the session the other week. Everything matters. Like we're trying to build a holistic, you know, process and path of health. We want to do stuff like that. This is what I was thinking. We want to be very thoughtful, try to incorporate every good process of health. He says here, how does that happen? How does a team of previously ordinary athletes transform into world champions with tiny changes that at first glance would seem to make a modest difference? Why do small improvements accumulate into such remarkable results? And how can you replicate this in your own life? So this is good so far, but here's where things went really interesting, okay? There's an asterisk at the bottom, which he says, at the time this book was going to print, new information came out about this story, and you can see my thoughts at this website. And so then it takes you out of the book and into a website where he's like, hey, thanks for buying my book. And I just want to chat with you a little bit about this British cycling, because he started writing this in 2012 even, and put the story in. And I don't know how it's like to write a book, but he had his manuscript all in, and basically they couldn't change it. But right before the book is going out, it came out that the whole thing was basically a scam. I was reading this. And that the whole atomic improvements or whatever little habits of the team was just a cover from the fact that they were using performance enhancing drugs and covering it up. Oh man. I was like, you are kidding me. And so I was just thinking so much about the book and this poor guy who's spent years of his life writing this book, and he framed it over this thing, and then it comes out that it's a fraud. Oh man. And so I did some thinking about that. And he's like, look, the framework is good. Atomic habits are good. It makes a difference. But, whoa, So I was just thinking about what that means for a process, Think, what does it mean for a process? How do you transform, people into world championship cyclers? Well, giving them steroids, behind everybody's back is going to help. Oh, man. But then look at how it ends. Okay, look at this process, how it ends. They had their moments of glory. They won their medals. Everybody was happy. But then it's a disgrace. And the sponsors disgrace. The team is, it ends terribly. So I was just thinking, even from this, analogy, the fact that happened, to me, some notes I just mentally took about it is just telling us we have to be so thoughtful, with our own process. You don't want to end up like a team like this, where it was you cut every corner and you're just putting on a show, for people, where you're faking everything. I was giving a warning, this is what I'm saying in the process. We want to build the strongest, stable, most honest foundation. Right? That is true health. What these people were doing was not healthy. They look like the pinnacle of health. It's so strong, and they say, they got their special process. And this is another thing was telling me is why we should absolutely never compare ourselves to other people under basically any circumstances. You could say, well, who should I compare myself to? Look at this wonderful team of, young bikers, and they got all these great ideas, and why we got to be so careful about, gurus and everybody saying, look at my way, I've got everything figured out, everybody trying to sell something. You have no idea what people are doing. Everybody trying to put on a show. Oh my gosh. We did a session like that. What did we call it? One of these lives, don't compare yourself, was the whole thing to anybody. We got to be walking our own path. This is why I love these books so much, especially this one on the mountain, climbing the mountain. The mountain is you. That's the book. We're not climbing anybody else's mountain other than our own. And then you're going to protect yourself so much from stuff like that. Okay, how are y'all doing with that? Isn't that interesting? Do you find that interesting? That's some super bonus to the book. And I just think, so far I'm loving this guy so much, because he's totally owning it and just putting it out there and saying look at the big picture. And seems like a very honest guy as I'm reading it. So I'm liking it so far. Let me show you the picture. I was telling you, found a picture. So I've said it in the past. We talked about 1% better every day in the past. I totally love that idea. And I said in the past, I never did the math. We say if you get 1% better every day, you aren't just, 365% better, because it compounds. It goes parabolic. And that's what he talks about with his picture. Here's his picture that he has in the book. And then he did the math and put it on. So if you're getting 1% better every day, look, you're on this geometrically increasing improvement. You end up 37 times better by the end of a year if you got 1% better every day. Whereas look, and then he puts on the decay curve. What if you got 1% worse every day? You end up basically like everything is gone after a year because it negatively compounds. I say, man, let's be 37 times better next year. By next year, 2027. See, unrecognizable. You say, how can you even think of that 37-fold improvement? Even if it didn't compound, I say if you got 1% better every year and it was a linear path, and see, I was only 300% better. See, to me that would be good enough. That'd be fine. We don't have to be 37 times better. But I love the thinking though, and he says habits are the compound interest of self-improvement. We've been right on that. The same way that money multiplies through compound interest, the effect of our habits multiply as we repeat them. Absolutely. That's why we got to build the very best habits. I say a lot what I like to say, we want to find our template. What is the way to win one day? Where one day is like the perfect health day. We want to create a vision of it. What does a perfect health day look like? And then how do we flow through that and practice doing that? That would be the types of habits that we want. It says a habit seems to make little difference on any given day, yet the impact they deliver over months and years is enormous. It is only when we look back 2, 5, or even 10 years later that the value of good habits and the cost of bad ones become strikingly apparent. A quote is coming to my mind. Have I used it on here before? I don't know. I think it is. I don't know who said it, but it is, in the beginning, we shape our habits, but our habits shape us in the end. Yeah. We'll have to look that one up. Habits can be such a difficult concept to appreciate in life. We often dismiss small changes because they don't seem to matter very much in the moment. You save a little money now, you still don't have much. You go to the gym 3 days, you're still out of shape. You study a language for an hour tonight, you still haven't learned it. We make a few changes, but the results do not come quickly, and so we slide back into previous routines. Have you experienced something like that? You get really built up for something, I'm going to make a change, okay, and then the first couple steps, used up the initial enthusiasm, and then it's like, then we're kind of back to a neutral. We kind of adjust, and it's like, do I really stick with it? See, most changes, they kind of fizzle out. This is why we try to approach everything in the most calm, centered, thoughtful way so that we can really incorporate all the healthy things, make them habits, bring them into our life as we're making time our ally, so that time is our ally. We're compounding those results over time. This is how we're bringing that element of time in. We say we want time on our side. We want compounding on our side. We start making the small changes. So as we are doing it, those changes are changing our course. He tells a story in here somewhere. Like if you took off from LA and went to New York, The heading is just 3.5 degrees, basically saying the nose of the plane moving by just a couple feet like that, you're going to end up in Washington, D.C. versus New York by the end. Small changes initially, and then flowing through time as we go through it. That's what gives us the compounding. That's the big idea, I think, so far of the book. Building these habits in a small way, steps at a time, so that as we flow through the time, we can actually make and sustain the changes and let them work for us. Which is, of course, what we want. As many things as we can get working for us so that like we have to do less work, this is exactly what we want. I say let fasting do the work. That's a big thing that I'm going to try to help everybody build. Fasting, an incredible habit, incredibly powerful. I want to help everybody slowly, gently, thoughtfully incorporate more of it into your life if you want it, if you're open to it. It's a very, very powerful path. Queen of Heaven says, Atomic Habits. I've read it several times. Excellent. You have a big jump start on me. I'm just diving in and reading through it, live. I'm not reading it right now, but, I read it over the weekend, the first chapter or so. And so I'd be very happy to hear your perspective as we go along. I kind of like this personally, reading it live, so that I can like in the process, so I can just kind of bring the fresh ideas from it. Otherwise, I think what would happen, this is what I was saying, you read an AI summary of a book, and it's like, you get the whole overview, but you don't get the process. You don't get the experience of realizing it. The way the author wants to step through it. That's part of the unlock of a book, I think. Reading a book really is a process that builds out an argument, builds out ideas and concepts. And if you just skip to the end, if you just read the summary, I feel like you miss something in the process of really, going through it. He says, unfortunately, the slow pace of a transformation also makes it easy to let a bad habit slide. You eat an unhealthy meal today, the scale doesn't move that much. You work late one night, you ignore your family, they will forgive you. You procrastinate and put off a project till tomorrow, there'll usually be time to finish it later. So the little things too, you see, it didn't matter that much. And this is why it can be difficult to build powerful habits, because the results are delayed. The big results from compounding are delayed. And the consequences of our times when we aren't, true to ourselves are also delayed. And so we can get kind of lost in this middle, where it's hard to really see the difference in where it moves. If we go back into that financial analogy, you look at Buffett. I've used a lot of Warren Buffett quotes. You look at, we should bring up the table, of his net worth over time. But, now it's just in the hundreds of billions, these obscene numbers. But it's something like 80% of it happened after he was 65. It's like the compounding kicks in late in that regard. So that is just showing us just showing us so helpful to have a long-term perspective, and he is going in this space, we'll see less about a specific goal. Remember, we're saying it's not, I'll be happy when, or I have success when, but bringing everything into the present, into this day. It's I'm having success now because I've found a way of being in the world that feels good, that feels the energy that we're on track, living in alignment with the process, flowing toward it, not struggling. And not struggling meaning there is struggle in life. Life in many ways is struggle, but we are accepting that and then flowing through the process with as much grace as we can. Absolutely. Yeah, this is a comment. You know, we could spend a lot of time thinking about it. I think about it a lot myself. AI makes me lazy. There's a very interesting speech. Remember, what was I saying the other day about the Seinfeld diet? We were talking about Seinfeld, which I love, and Jerry Seinfeld gave a speech. It was a commencement address maybe 2 years ago. I think it's Stanford. You can look it up. But he, you know, in his Seinfeld-y sort of way, that is so funny. He's yelling at all these people about using ChatGPT, and he's like, "Why does everybody think this is such a big deal?" Now, so I think Seinfeld, I think he's kind of ahead of his time because, you know, 2 years ago the hype was so huge, and now, you know, people kind of recognizing, like, you know, there's a lot of good and bad to some of this. A lot of laziness or something mentally can develop. But he was saying at that time, I want to look it up. It was something, he's like their motto should be like ChatGPT, because I just couldn't do it myself, or, you know, something. He's so funny, and I'm not so funny. But like that sort of thing, you know, very attractive to think, oh, I don't have to do the thinking or do the work. I'll just let this machine do it for me. It's like, but then we don't get the learning and the growth of having to do it ourselves. See, this is why I was thinking about that this morning. It's like, we have to go through the work ourselves. Say, I want something that transports me to the goal without having to go through the process of getting there. This is like pretty much the process of most weight management programs, you know, which you say, if you could do it, it's like, wouldn't you want that for somebody? And it's like, I guess I would. Like, in some way, we want to be kind and compassionate always. If there was an easy button, you know, remember easy button, you just hit it and it's done. So, but life really is a journey, and actually the process of walking through a path and overcoming the obstacle, this is how you actually overcome it so that it's sustainable. Pros and cons to all these things. Everything in life has pros and cons. Absolutely. I heard someone saying, okay, you know, will an AI be the new doctor? I have personally been thinking about this for over a decade. I remember 10 years ago having a philosophical discussion with someone where we were just intentionally arguing, and they're like, okay, you're going to argue the position that in the future, primary care doctor going to be replaced by AI, and then they'll argue that it won't. And so, you know, when this might have been somewhere, let's say it was 2015, you know, long before AI really blew up into a big thing. And I remember arguing at the time, because I'm a big believer in human connection and relationships, and the ability of community and connection to actually bring health and healing. And, you know, a big part of my belief at the time was like, you're never going to replace doctors with AIs, because people are going to want that human connection and the understanding that so much of medicine, it isn't just what is physically happening to us, but the emotional experience of being a human being who is having, you know, a medical crisis or an emotional issue of some kind. But then, you know, when I was arguing in it, in this debate, I was like, well, when you're a human being who grew up with a tablet or smartphone in your hand since the age of 3, and your whole life has been part of this, maybe you just form a deeper relationship to something than a human being. And I say, okay, you go through that. It's like, this was my argument at the time. People are going to be preferring it. People are going to seek it out. I don't want to have to reveal all my personal things to some person who might judge me. I just want to type it into a thing and get an answer. so I was arguing that back in 2015. And then I felt bad about it, but I was like, it almost felt inevitable back then. And pandemic changed that. Yeah, pandemic hyper accelerated this like super digitalization of life and medicine for sure. Pushed everything into telemedicine, and it kind of created this environment. Like, medicine is something that doesn't really need as much human connection anymore. And I guess I would say, as somebody who was in a clinic throughout that entire experience, I think that was a huge part of the burnout, and the reason that that medicine is in an especially more difficult place now is that, the human connection, the things that really make it meaningful to practice medicine, to be able to actually connect with human beings and face to face, is being eroded by that process. And this is why my position has changed over a decade now. What seemed inevitable in the past, like picturing an basically omnipotent, all-powerful AI that has access to the sum of human knowledge, and it also is completely dialed in with every piece of information, local epidemiologic trends, what viruses are circulating in a community. You say, how is a human being going to compete with something like that? And what I would say, I've become more and more optimistic that we're going to find a balance somewhere. I don't think these things are going to go away. But I think this is all going to circle back around. And people who say, no, actually, our human relationships are important. And this maybe even has more meaning to me, even than getting like the perfect information every time, even if an AI was perfect. And of course, as we spend more time interacting with it, we realize it's not perfect. It makes mistakes just like any person can do, can hallucinate and just have total ridiculous things. Incorporating that into enterprise level, things, I think there's going to be a lot more trouble before people. There's so much momentum, so much money behind it. I think it's gonna take some people being harmed by it, probably badly, until people really slow this down and think like, maybe we should keep the docs around. And I think it's going to come back around. Yeah, to be actually able to spend time with people. I think we're going to see medicine come back around, just to realize like the things that matter, doctors and nurses and every other type of medical provider, the people that make the heart of medicine. This is what really matters. We're gonna we'll come back to it. Okay, that's some thoughts about that. We gotta design systems where everybody has time and space, so that we can try to get all the information. The amount of pressure that I felt under when I was sitting in the mainstream medical system, it was like a moral injury. I couldn't do it. I want it anymore. I was like, I need to be in a space like this. This is why I'm here. I made this space so that I can just dive deep and spend a lot of time with people. And I want to build this out in a way that is just 1% better every day. More connection, leaning into all these types of things, so that every question can be answered. I'm not saying that I know the answer to every question, but I can research it. We can what are the barriers? What are the things? We'll walk toward it together. And AI not going to sit with you and really, take the time. Yes. Fantastic. That is a good thing. Find those ones. Absolutely. Success, he says here on this page, to bring us back into our weight loss path, is the product of daily habits, not once-in-a-lifetime transformations. Let's just sink into that for a little while. if we are to take a philosophical perspective on weight loss, people think that weight loss is a thing. People think that it's something that happens, like, oh, I'm going to have it, and it's like discrete in time. When I think the better viewpoint on it, it's a process, it's an experience, and it really is a path, and not a point in time. Because I mean, I can't tell you how many people I have seen who have had weight loss, right? Who had a surgery, even when you can pin it down to a very moment. You say, I had a bariatric surgery on this day, or I had a liposuction procedure on this day, and you say, and the weight was just gone. That was a moment. Okay. That's very physical in the body, something like that. Someone has some abdominoplasty, right? The fat is just gone. Okay, we are a mind body. It's the same sort of thing. Okay, how many people who have been through that are back on the path that they were before and put the weight back on? It's a large percentage. I don't have the exact number, but just in my weight management clinic, large percentage of people coming through had bariatric surgery 4, 5, 6 years ago, and they had an incredible experience with it, and then they flowed back into the same place that they started. So this is why I want to help people. And so I say, whether someone had a surgery or they hadn't, like oftentimes we're really at the same place. I was like, we need to drill down into the emotional layer. We need to get down into the very foundation. These habits, it's not a once in a lifetime event, like he says in this book. It's a practice of daily habits. And how do you build that? He says, outcomes are a lagging measure of habits. There's this delay, right? Like we were saying, takes a while to get to that space. That is one of the barriers to building them, because you don't see the incredible results always right up front. Sometimes you see some. I mean, fasting, a very powerful practice. You start opening up a fasting space, you get some results, like you can get them fairly quickly to some degree. But it's like, then it's a process. Okay, you get some results, but it's like we always want them faster. It's like, how do we take this process, bring it into a way of being so that time is the ally? Here's where I took this from. He says, time magnifies the margin between success and failure. It will multiply whatever you feed it. Good habits make time your ally, and bad habits make time the enemy. We want to make time the ally. It's the whole thing I'm going for with this. Good habits make time our ally, because then the compounding is working in our favor. So a process of going through this book, a process of building habits that help to make time our ally, so that every day that is passing, we are taking one step forward on our journey. And then, just like the plane, a little bit of degrees changing, totally change the destination. We are creating aspirational visions. We are looking into the mountains. We are trying to overcome obstacles and accomplish every good thing in health that we want. It takes time to do that, but going through the time, having time as our ally, then we start seeing it. We're not working against a clock. We're not stressing about some pressure. We're not feeling behind the ball. Say, I am taking steps 1% every day, 1% better, moving toward it, improving the things that I can have while keeping the joy in the space, joy on the journey. This is how we make it sustainable, so that we are feeling the good energy flowing in our life, one step at a time as we go. Atomic Habits, going to be diving through. Do share thoughts, observations as we go along. When you have read it, especially we're getting to a spot where you've read, you have thoughts, like let's have a conversation about it. And then I'll probably be jumping between some of these other thoughts. I'm also thinking about taking a week off from this standard sort of thing and doing a focus week. I spent most of my weekend I spent reviewing papers on the intersection of fasting, metabolic health, and medical oncology and cancer treatment and prevention, which is just a fascinating intersection. There's actually incredible literature that people are studying. Fasting-based practices to decrease cancer incidence. I want to maybe do a show on that. Fascinating ways that people are incorporating fasting practices for augmenting cancer treatment. Just really mind-boggling to me. Very interesting avenue. I've wanted to read some of this literature for a long time, but I've always been so dialed in, just weight loss, diabetes. And so I was very inspired this weekend to see some of that. I have to know, let me know, is that type of thing, fasting interface with cancer, would that be something you would be interested in hearing about? Or do you feel like, I am not coming to Dr. Z for that? I was doing some reflecting about that this weekend. Like, do we stay on target? But then I was like, but it kind of is on target. Like, our target is total health and wellness. And I think the more I'm thinking about it live with you, I'm thinking like it would enrich our understanding of health and what we're trying to do. I think I'll probably do it one of these weeks. So I'll probably be spending my time this week reading through this book, bringing you that, and then maybe planning like a cancer series. We'll see. Very nice to share this space with you. Really appreciate this space, the comments, the interactions. I hope you have a beautiful day. I hope time is on your side in this day. And I will look forward to connecting with you again tomorrow. Have a great day, everybody.